Let's consider different types of malware from the internet. Malware, we introduced this notion already, came from malicious software, and its name's software usually is smuggled by hackers onto an unsuspecting user's device. It could be a laptop, it could be a smartphone, via the internet, via internet connections, which enables the cyber attacks, which enable the cyber crimes to attack that systems where they were able to get infiltrated with malware. There are well-known examples of malware. There are viruses, worms, Trojans, Botnets, Rootkits, adwares, Spyware. I could prolong the list, and we will go into more detail in this video, speaking about the different types and seeing what are the characteristics. So let's start with the malware type of viruses. Viruses are harmful mini-programs that integrate themselves into existing programs. The program is called the host program, and the malware, the viruses, integrate into this program. And in the effect, they falsify or they change the host program. Sometimes the integration of malware even takes place without changing the size or the date of the last modification. Typically, if a program is changed or something is changed, then one can see this, for example, in the last modification date, or one can see this in the size. So viruses are designed that often they integrate into the host program, but do not change size or modification date. Problem with such harmful mini-programs, with such viruses, is that they multiply themselves locally by means of the host program. So the reproduction has a particular effect on the performance of the effector system. It becomes slow, it is no more efficient, but there could be also other bad effects caused by the virus malware. So viruses can affect the workability of the system at all, the computer, the laptop, the smartphone, what device you are using. Another type of malware are worms. Worms are malicious programs which spread themselves independently over the network or via removable media, for example, USB sticks. This type of malware is able to start themselves after further transmission. So the user does not have to expressly agree to the execution. The worm starts to do its work without such a start point. Often worms spread faster than viruses. The difference to viruses is that worms work independently, so they do not need a host program. So following execution, the payload often has wasteful effects on the affected systems. For example, the impairment of performance, the post-installation of other malware, backdoors are opened, infected computer became a bot in a botnet. All this could be reached by a means of attacks by means of worms. Next type of malware are Trojan or Trojan horses. The term Trojan refers to computer programs which hidden malicious functions masks as useful applications. Like in the history, the Trojan horse, the malware looks different from what it is doing. So when the supposedly benign application is started, the malicious function is automatically executed. Partly parallel to executed functionality, to remain unnoticed from the user. So in this way, Trojans can also camouflage themselves as documents or as files. So here the characteristic is the hidden malicious functionality, which characterizes such Trojans. So the malicious function is executed when the document or the file is opened. The malicious function could consist in that a login page is shown, but it's not the right login page. This is a faked login page, so that if the user types in password, username, then the Trojan can take this data and send it, for example, to the attacker. So as an example, a similar example is the fake Facebook app for Android phone to access username and password combination and later on to misuse this combination. Another type, attacking another part of the system, are so-called Keylogger. A Keylogger is a mini program that records all users' keystrokes. So more powerful variants also capture the contents of the screen, so that when later on the attacker can compare the screen with what the user is doing on his keyboard. Recording of the keystrokes is carried out when some sensible information is given in. For example, when a password input field appears on the screen and then the user makes keystrokes, typically your user fill in the password. So recording the keystrokes, the attacker has a chance to get the user's password. The recorded user inputs are then stored in a file which is accessible for the attacker or which is directly sent to the attacker. The attacker can misuse such information. We discussed this in detail for identity theft, for bank transfer. Remember to week 2 where we have already spoken about such keyloggers. Now let's have a look to botnets, another form, variant of malware. Such a botnet is a combination of many, many different systems. The systems are called bots. Typically, the system are recruited without the knowledge of the owner of that system. And then there is a CNC server, and command and control server. And this command and control server is in the hand of the attacker. And from this, by means of this CNC server, the attacker remotely manages, coordinates, and controls the many bots. So by means of the CNC server, the attacker is able to send a command to all this, to the huge number of different systems, for example, to try to access a system or to other activities. The CNC server, the command and control server, takes the control over the bots and sends commands to the bots, which then are executed automatically and autonomously. So the user of the owner of the bot computer does not know it. The system starts to work autonomously, for example, and starting a denial of service attack or doing other kind of attack. So botnets with many, and many means millions of remote controlled bots, can perform a variety of attacks, of very dangerous attacks with high computational power, because all the millions of bots can work together, for example, to start an encryption part or to start a denial of service attack or to do some others. And from the attacked system, the content control server is not seen, but the bots are seen, and the bots often, the owner, are not aware that their computer are bots. We will continue to discuss about this in a more detailed video on botnets. Here, the idea is first to start with an overview about the different types of malware, and the next what we have to discuss and introduce are rootkits and backdoors. A rootkit is a malicious software that gives the attacker the possibility to continuously access the compromised system, the laptop or the company system or the mobile device. Usually, such rootkits are installed when a system is breached. So this is often the idea of such an attack, to install such a rootkit to later be able to have access to the computer system without knowledge of the owner of the system. So rootkit tries to conceal its own existence on the system, so it is able to open connection, it is able to mask certain files, and it's able to hide other malicious programs from the users, for example, or for the antivirus system of the antivirus software of the system. Beside of the rootkits, the backdoor is important. The backdoor allows an attacker to gain unauthorized access to a third-party computer system. So the idea of such a rootkit is to install a backdoor. Such backdoors are very attractive for cybercriminals because they do not have one-time access to the system. They can control, they see what's going on the system, and they can interact and remotely change things or see things on the system when they have such a backdoor, so that they have a hidden access to the system. Adware. Adware is another type of malware. Adware is a program that displays advertising in addition to the actual functionality. So adware can also be integrated into the web browser, which makes it possible to display advertisements on every web page. So this is not an advertisement coming from the server of that web page and from the provider of that page. It comes from the malware. So malicious software, this adware, that uses advertising is also referred to as adware. For example, browser plugins send embedded JavaScript with ads on each page and others. Another type of malware is so-called spyware. Spyware is a software that sends sensitive data to third parties without consent of the owner. For example, spyware send information to the software manufacturer. If a user uses an application, it's possible by means of the spyware to send all the activities to the software manufacturer that gives him an idea how this is used. The spyware can send sensitive information to web service provider, also to government agencies, foreign intelligence services and others. So spyware is also referred to as spy software, as snooping software or spy programs. Here, the data transmission, the transmission of the sensitive data is taking place in secret. Often, that spyware is used to display personalized advertising and following the serving behavior of the user. But it can also used to get information about personal data, for example, passwords or credit card data or other secret data in a personal, in the private life, but also development materials and others from a company. Scareware. Scareware, another type of, another malfunctionality, another type of malware, which attempts to frighten users by taking error messages, by showing virus infections or other problems. And the idea is that particularly current or prominent viruses and error messages are used to make the threat as dramatic as possible. So the user gets the information that his computer systems are infected without such an infection took place. So then the user, to threat the user and to do this dramatically, the software asked for banalities to repair this defect. For example, to replace the viruses. So a typical approach here is an example that listening legal infringements on the user in the name of police, and then penalty is asked for repairing this. Rogue antivirus, Rogueware, rogue antivirus malware. This is a standalone program, or Rogueware that's a standalone program that fakes a trustworthy source to get sensitive information or money. So preventing the cleaning of the computer while introducing malicious programs or stealing data. The Rogue antivirus is a special type of Rogueware that camouflage itself as an antivirus program. And idea behind is it claims to scan the computer, and then it really finds various malicious software which is not on the system, and in reality there is no real scan performed, but the infections are reported, even if the system is fault-free, to request money for repairing the system. So the user often prompted to that type of malware and say, yes, I sent some money for repairing my computer. Ransomware. Ransomware is another type of malware. It is a malicious program that prevents the user from accessing his or her own data and extorts money. Idea behind is that the data are encrypted. The idea of that ransomware is to encrypt the personal data on the user's computer so that the user is no more able to understand the data, to get the data, and to work with the data. And then the attackers, they get an offer for decryption of that data, so that he or she can get back his or her data. But of course, there is a request that for this service the user has to pay. There is a general agreement among hints that are given by security experts that they advise not to pay, because often it's not clear whether the user really gets back his data, whether the data really are decrypted, or whether it's only as a way to get data. So infection by means of such ransomware is done by email attachments, by Trojans, or by other malware. In this case, a prevention method is that one needs to take care that the data are regularly backed on all important data, so that even if an attacker is able to infiltrate the system with ransomware and encrypt all the personal data, that one can then get back the data from the backup and has not to discuss with the attacker about giving it back. I also could continue further types of such malware. It should show you the big variety of malfunctionality and of different ideas attackers have to do some malicious functionality on your computer. If we look to malware attacks today, then we have to say that's not so easy to say today's software belongs to that category or to this category. So what we see is that the recent malicious malware is no longer be assigned explicitly to one of the name types. Usually the reasons malware comes with various malicious functions which are used to attack the attacker and which comes from different categories. In some cases, even the malware is designed in a way that additionally components and additionally malfunctions can be uploaded. As an example, let's have a look to the well-known Carburp malware, which contains various functions. Functions of Trojan, functionality of Keylogger, functionality of Rootkit, of Backdoor, all comes within one malware. So here you see there is a great variety of different malfunctionality coming with different malicious software, and we have to discuss all these attack possibilities in more details in the next videos.